Black Ram 313. Supreme wisdom. You can change your own emotions. The way you feel about anything, you can change yourself. Guess what? Guess what? You are the only one responsible for how you feel about anything. You are the only one responsible for the way you feel. That belongs solely and exclusively to you. No one else is to blame for your hurts or disappointments or even good feelings. You choose exactly that. I remember when I was a young man in high school, I had a somewhat popular and pretty girlfriend. And she dressed pretty provocatively. I'm a young man at this time, about 16, 17. I didn't know much. She would wear the tightest things. She had the prettiest face too, and she had a very, very nice body at the time. My mindset at the time that I was happy to walk down the street with her and have her as my woman because she looked so nice. But I grew to a point in which I really didn't like what she was wearing. And not because of principle, but because I was pretty much jealous in the sense that I believed that she would attract another man that would steal her away from me. So this jealousy didn't come naturally as my property. I wasn't thinking in those terms as women as property. But this jealousy came out of my deep insecurity, believing that some dope boy would take my woman because she's walking down the street looking so good. So this made me afraid. Therefore, I reacted in anger at what she was wearing. And that was very unplayer-like. I was so infuriated that at that point I thought, I didn't do it, I thought to do physical harm to her. So one day I went to her house and took all of her short shorts, tight shirts, and I threw them away. I was very angry, very jealous. Now that wasn't the appropriate way to respond to the situation. The point that I want to make here is that who was responsible for that jealous rage? Who was responsible for that insecurity? Again, I'm not talking about the principle of a woman carrying herself in decency and respect to her husband. I'm talking about the insecurity that came along with her dressing provocatively. Don't get it twisted. I then decided at that point that since I lost control of my emotions and wanted to do harm to her physically and ended up throwing away her clothes, that this position that I had and this reaction that I had was an uncomfortable one for me and out of character. So I chose now. I made an agreement with myself not to ever express or even feel that type of anger and jealousy. Now, how do you do such a thing? Simply by the power of your will and intent, willing myself not to feel that anymore. And it was at that point when I no longer cared how a woman dressed. Again, I wasn't thinking principle at the time, 17, 18 years old. Many years before YouTube or book was written about the concept. But my emotions had gotten the best of me, and I did not like the feeling of a loss of emotional control, because I knew instinctively that I was the one responsible for the way I reacted. So not only did I exercise the power of will and intent, I thought about it constantly and continually, realizing that no woman belongs to me, and that what she wears shouldn't be my concern, in the sense that in society she's going to do what she wants to do anyway. Again, for the last time, the disclaimer: I'm not talking about how a woman should carry herself principally as a man's wife. This is more in the area of thinking like a player or a pimp. But my point is that I changed my emotions, my intent, my will, my meditation. See, often emotions are not based on reality at all. It's based on a certain perspective or outlook, an outlook or perspective that may be false. See, throwing away her clothes wouldn't have solved the issue of her dealing with another man at all. False perceptions can lead to false emotions. So now you have emotional energy that is directed unwisely and irrationally. An example of a false emotion based off of false perspective and even false information. There was a time when I ignorantly believed that sleeping with a woman, the act of having sex with a woman, whether she was a virgin or not, but just simply sleeping with a woman, an unattached woman, a single woman, without the consent of a judge, without the consent of the state, I once believed that that was morally wrong and that God would punish me for this. The Christians and the Americans falsely call this fornication, which is not the definition in the biblical text whatsoever. However, based off this false pretense, this false idea and concept, I then had an emotion of guilt if I would sleep even with a virgin woman when I was young. A sense of deep guilt and regret, not understanding my desire biologically for a woman to sleep with her, yet believing that I was not allowed to do so. And being too young to be married, being too young to support a family. I believe I had to repress my sexual desires based off a false pretense, a false perception, false information. The point is that your emotions are not necessarily the barometer of truth. And once the new information came in my latter years, I no longer felt the deep sense of guilt associated. Now, did society change? No. Did society's definition of fornication change? No. But what did change, based off new information, I was able to change my own emotion based off my own belief system and value, which is based off of the biblical text itself. I digress. Now let's examine that for a second. I was able to change my feelings of guilt, of deep guilt that I thought was in me because of God, because I was convinced based off the new information. And you can do the same. And I can do the same. It takes work. It takes practice. It takes a strong constitution, intestinal fortitude, a strong mind. However, you can change your emotions the way you feel about anything, particularly things that may negatively impact you. This is the power within the mind given to us by our Creator. You are the only one responsible for how you feel. Your anger, your jealousy, your happiness, the whole array of emotions that humans experience. Now, there are some things that are automatic, such as grief, such as losses. However, you can program the mind to not be overtaken by such things as well, to not let the deep-seated emotions destroy you. Again, you are the only one responsible for this. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that takes a city. Proverbs 16 and 32. That is your supreme wisdom, Black Ram.